When people talk about PvP, what do they talk about? Warriors? Druids? Mages? Maybe rogues? Well, it varies person to person, but one thing is for sure. Most people think rangers are bad. And I actually don't think rangers are that bad. I played a few PvP rangers in the past and made it work. So I'll try and share some knowledge today and give a few helpful tips and tricks out. So first off, let's compare armor here. And we're going to use diamond as a reference because most shop gear follows the kind of trend. So we see that warrior armor is completely perfect. It got nice strength, vit, high armor, and good resistances. And let's compare that to rogue. Rogue has strength, it has dex instead of vit, which is worse. It has 60 less armor. It has the same resistance. Not bad, pretty decent, but not as good. But compare that to ranger. Same stats, but it has focus instead of strength. That's a pretty big downside. But even though it's the worst of the 5 shop armors, it's still pretty decent. Definitely worth using over Earthstone, so at least you can live a few hits. Now on the weapons, there's 3 different weapon types a ranger can use. Hand to hand, looks pretty fancy, really fast, but what is the point of it? Think about it. There are no skill attacks you can use aside from double attack with it, and you're basically just stuck with passive skills. So, almost 100% auto. Pass. Spears. I mean, it is a ranger weapon, but let's take a look at the other classes real quick. With a warrior and a spear, you can use pummel, giant swing, sweeping blow, shatter, double attack, and skewer. All in one, just not rupture. With a rogue, you can use quick strike, rend, assassinate, skewer, double attack. I think that's it. No sneaky attack though. But with a ranger, what do you have? You just have skewer and double attack. That's it. And skewer only does base damage. So the only thing that hits more than your auto is double attack. Seems pretty pointless to me. The only pro it has is that it's decent for autoing, but the only worthwhile spear in the whole entire game basically is a Morty spear because it's fast. Aggie spear's fast too, but it's not that strong. So 99 times out of 100, I will not recommend a spear for a ranger. Now, the last thing we have left. Well, let's ask ourselves this question to figure out if it's good. What is a ranger good for? Well, it's in the name, range. And not only are bows pretty strong, they have higher attack than most things, and decent speed, but that advantage of range. But the question is, why is range good? Well, if you have to fight anyone who's melee, they have to make it all the way over to you to inflict damage, most of the time. And that range can be pretty far. Like that range, it would take quite a bit of time for them to reach me. Even with druids and mages, they have shorter range than rangers. So if you can exploit that, you can reduce your damage taken, which will let you inflict more damage as you'll be alive longer. Makes sense, right? But how can we make the most of our range aside from that? Well, let's look at skills. Most ranger skills aren't that good, and that's a main problem for PvP and rangers in PvE too. But we'll go over the good ones, or maybe even all of them. So recuperate, no. Bandage wounds, not that good. Sharp shot, it's instant, but I would only recommend it at a higher level. Steady aim's a PvE skill mainly. The only point of it is maybe if you're fighting a tank with DL or EDL, because that comes with a lot of defense on it. Bolus is one of the most OP skills ever created. It makes the enemy run at a snail's speed for 30 seconds. In PvE, at least. In PvP, it's more like 12, 14, something like that. It lasts just long enough to cast another one, but there's a split second or two that the enemy is free to move at full speed. Now, the reason why it's nerfed in PvP is because when PvP was first released in 2012 with the full 30 seconds, people were pretty much screwed if they ever got Bolus thrown on them. They couldn't do anything. So it's nice that they nerfed it, and it's nice that they left it long enough to be effective. But keep that in mind, how it almost makes it around to cast again. Rapid Shot, it's pretty nice. It gives you 50% haste, which is equal to a super haste elixir. If you have Rapid Shot on, you don't need any gloves of haste or ring of haste. It would actually be a waste. So keep that in mind if you're gearing. You can skip gloves if your Rapid Shot lasts long enough. Barb Shot, it's not that good, but there is a nice advantage that it carries over damage. So if you have an obsidian bow, it'll still hit really hard. Light Heal's a better version of Bandage Wounds that's based on dex. Cast faster, heals more, and basically just better all around. But another problem is that heals are nerfed in PvP, at least skill heals. So, not worth using, especially because it leaves you vulnerable and in one place where you'll probably take even more damage trying to cast it. Alright, no. Long Shot. Nice skill. It does pretty heavy damage and carries over your weapons damage. As you see, I hit 779 on level 20. It also pins the enemy to the spot, which means they're rooted and they can't move at all. Now, remember I said earlier about Bolus almost making it around? Well, if you throw Bolus on the enemy, and you notice that it only has like a second or two left, cast Long Shot. Then when Bolus runs out, then they'll be stuck from the long shot, and then you can throw a Bolus on them while they're stuck, and make an infinite cycle. As long as you time it perfectly, and don't miss, you can just exploit melee enemies forever. Very OP, and that's our bread and butter for this video. Skewer, that's just spear skill. I mean, it carries over damage, it's good for that, that's about it. Never level it up. Double Shot, double the damage, always a nice skill, especially with heavy weapons, and even in general, you can just use an auto and then cast it like I showed in the Ymir video and get 3 times the damage in the time to cast a double shot because the first auto is instant. Good stuff. But if you're running a low level, I would definitely recommend Long Shot, Double Shot, Bolus, and probably Rapid Shot. All good stuff. With my build here, why I used the Long Shot and Double Shot is because this is the one exception to the run and gun builds that Rangers normally are. At level 20, you can go full strength and use a Winter King bow, and it's one-handed, so you can have even more damage and more damage and more, up to a maximum of 182 pierce damage at level 20, plus heat from Midsummer Solstice. Very OP, and because of the heroic gear I have, and other stuff, you're pretty tanky too. But, about this charm slot, there's another advantage we gotta talk about here. Since you have range, you have the ability to hide. So maybe Shrink Charms might be worth it if you can hide far away and use your very far range in order to exploit some stuff. So if I'm hiding all the way over here, he's probably not going to see me. Just something to think about. The last thing we have to talk about, it's another topic about range. I drew out a little collision map that we're going to talk about. And a collision map is anything your character can collide with, mainly walls and floors, but we didn't include floors because we're not worried about that. We're just concerned about walls. So I drew the dueling area in the tavern a little bit more because that's our area of interest. But before we could talk about this, we need to define what our terms mean. So you're probably wondering what a half wall and an NPC half wall are. Well, good questions. We know that a wall is something that you can't see or target through, as shown here. The only way you can target through it is if you target the object beforehand and then move in front of the wall. But a half wall is a little bit different. With a half wall, you can't run into the object, but you can still target over it. So it has half of the properties of a wall. An NPC half wall is a little bit different from that. Now, I'll use this one as a good example. You see that this smuggler guy is right there, right? But even if I tap the edge of this table, it will target the smuggler guy. Why does it do that? Well, these extras here are rigged to the smuggler. So he is part of him and him and him. They're all one NPC. It's just made there for show to animate to make things a little bit easier on the game itself. And you're probably wondering why this table is only half of one. Well, you can see that this guy is sitting on this end of the table, but no one's sitting on that end. So I can click on the innkeeper. Okay, I target the innkeeper. I click on this guy, targets the innkeeper. If I click over here, nothing happens until I get to about there. Now there's a reason I'm talking about these NPC half walls and why they're different. The difference is that if you try to double tap somebody to auto or click through the table, you'll wind up targeting the table instead usually. And you want to be careful with that because you might accidentally cast skills on the wrong thing, or get invalid targets, or maybe you could even make the other person mess up due to it. It's just an important note. And there's a reason why I marked the laystone different than everything else. Well, it has the properties of everything in a sense. Look, you can't target through a laystone, but it is an NPC. So it's like a NPC wall. Not a half wall, but a whole entire wall. Because no matter what you do, you can't click through it. But it still makes you run toward it and whatnot. Now that we have all that cleared up, let's start. So first we're going to talk about range, and let's say that your ranger can attack that range, and you're in the middle, right? Now I know I didn't draw this perfectly, so bear with me. Let's say that this is the exact middle of the circle. Now we'll say the target's here. So I shoot the maximum distance and hit that. And I could also shoot the maximum distance and hit over here. Both of those are the same distance, correct? Yeah. But let's say I shoot over here to hit a target behind that table. Well, the arrow would travel and hit, and the arrow would travel the same exact distance. Makes sense, right? But let's say our target is trying to attack us, and let's make this target, I don't know, blue. So our target's getting shot from, say, 20 meters all around, and it's 20 meters between me and him. So he tries to travel forward, but there's this table in the way. So what does he have to do? He has to run around the table in order to get to the ranger. Now the arrow traveled 20, but he probably traveled, let's say, 25. Now there's a massive advantage there. the enemy has to travel extra distance to hit you. And you didn't have to do anything really for that. And in addition to that, if your skills only work at a certain distance, you can get more fake distance and more protection while still being in range to use it. So that's why you often see people in PvP using the tables instead of just fighting outright. Other things. Say the ranger's over here and you got your big bad warrior over there. And ranger guy boluses him and long shots him and whatnot. But warrior guy is still moving very slowly toward you. Well, if you know what direction warrior guy is traveling, you can travel the other way. And since you move a lot faster while he's bolused and long-shotted, you can use the entire area to your advantage and keep looping him in a very unfair situation, using these tables and whatnot. So that's exactly what you should do. Other things of note. When you duel somebody, you have, a duel area circle around you like I explained in that one video. So let's say you duel, I don't know, guy A and your guy B. Let's just do that, whatever. A, B. So guy A challenges guy B. And the dueling circle is based around guy B. The one who gets the request is the one who sets the area. So always try to make sure that your area is in a spot that is an advantage to you. Such as, say, that, because you got 4 tables. Or maybe something like this, I don't know. Which reminds me, remember when I said you could target through a wall if you target the object beforehand? Well, that could be a serious advantage. Let's take a look. So, let's say you manage to target someone down here, and you're over here. Well, you could run like all the way over there and still shoot the target as long as you're still targeted on them. And you normally can't target through the stairs or upper level, but if you do get the target, then it's totally possible, and they would have to run a very long distance in order to get there, especially if slowed down. The only downside to that is that, let's draw this again. So you're there, and the guy's here. He's attacking you. He's in attacking range. You can't run this way because the duel area is that way. You'll just immediately lose. So you'd be forced to run into him, which means, like, that area, he has extra time to hit you. Which usually isn't much, but as a ranger you don't have that much armor, so you want to avoid being cornered if possible, because it's a weakness to you. There are some places that are a little bit more advantage-like say, I didn't really draw this part out, but it's a square room. We'll just pretend. Your enemy guy can be here, and you could be chilling in the bunk bed shooting him through 2 walls. But he can come in you, and since there's a little bit more space to move around, you could be, like, I don't know, here and run a circle around him or something. As long as you're not within range. You just play around with that. But the main point here is that you have to use the environment to your advantage. And obviously the tavern has a lot that you can do that with, like behind the bar, the stairs, all the way over here on the balcony, through there, tables, whatever. Just drawing lines everywhere. And ironically, that's what rangers are supposed to do. They're supposed to know their environment and, you know, turn that to your advantage. They're supposed to be like nature dudes, you know, knowledgeable about the forest and whatnot. Except you gotta be knowledgeable about your tables and how the tables turn the battle. I don't know what I'm doing anymore. But this exists in every area that you can PvP in. The castle, you got that fountain, you could just beam people through it and run around. The arena, you got that one spot where the stairs go like that. You can stand here and shoot people up top. So get creative, you know. Try and figure out what works, what doesn't. And master the ballast and long shot combo because that'll keep people at bay. And as your primary concern, you want to use and abuse that or else you'll lose. Definitely. Because rangers don't have any advantage besides the range advantage. There's only one warning I have to give you. Please, please, please don't cheat. And you're wondering, how can I cheat, Fiore? Well, I'm only going to tell you so you don't do it. If that makes any sense. Because back in 2012 when PvP was first released, I found a glitch where I can go in the arena and if I got hurt and laystoned back to the castle, I'd be in the castle map, but I'd see the people in the arena, so I could move to where, you know, things were in the castle according to the arena's coordinates, so I could run through walls in the arena and shoot people through that. And, well, that did get me a lot of kills. I also got a nice warning message from support, so probably not the best thing. They were pretty strict about cheating back then. I'm sure that they don't like it now. But here's the example in today's world. You got your friendly guy A and your friendly guy B. You know, B, A. Now let's say this time B sends A duel request, okay? A duel whatever. Mr. A runs up around the stairs and sits there, and then they accept it, whatever. Yeah, accept. So then the duel area for the duel is, let's say, here. Well, the problem is that B is a warrior, let's say. Now, A can just pelt B with arrows, and they can't do anything about it. Because, you know, you're on the upper floor. Now, B would want to go and then just beat the crap out of A for cheating, but if B tried to do that, B would run out of the duel area and immediately lose PvP XP and all that. So that's just a 100% win chance. I'm sure they would not take too kindly to that. So if you find any unfair advantage like that, please don't do it. For your own sake and for the sake of the sport too. But anyway, that's basically my thoughts on Ranger PvP. It's definitely a running game, but you shouldn't really look down on that or have people look down on that, because that's actually pretty hard to play a Ranger, especially with all the technical stuff that goes into it for PvP and running. If you want to get really crafty and save time, you could do animation canceling like I mentioned in that one video. With our nice little green and red, if red is super fast and is approaching you, you want all the advantages you can get. So you get through your ballast and then cancel it out with a long shot charge or something, and just get a few extra seconds to spare to reposition or run away or whatever you want to do. The point is, think outside the box, and I hope to see more Rangers around fighting. It may be difficult, but it is kind of fun, and I always like challenges. I'm sorry I couldn't do an in-game demo of it, but it's really hard to play on PC like that, because you can only move or turn the camera. You can't do both at once because you only have one mouse. I tried to explain as clear as possible, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask.